Well, folks, happy Friday. If you're on the left coast or the central time zone or on the mountain time zone, it's officially Saturday here on the east coast, but like 100 well, now I guess it's officially well, I'm still going to say 150 days out of election. Joe Biden goes overseas, plagiarizes Ronald Reagan's speech pretty much. If you compare the two, Ronald Reagan's speech from 40 years ago and Joe Biden's speech from yesterday or the day before, however you want to deal with it with the ways time goes around here. um, you have in Reagan somebody who is very well averse to everything that was going around, and you have in Biden somebody who looks like he's trying to sit down, but really anybody that's ever had kids or has been a kid, and I still remember this myself because I was afraid of toilets for a while. So even when I was 3 years old, I'd still be known to throw on a pair of pull-ups and pinch one off in the corner. And if a kid's about to take a shit while he's like, you'll see him kind of. And you see Joe Biden going about to like they say, oh, he was looking like he was going to sit down on a chair that wasn't there. Either way, whether or not he was about to shit his pants or sit down on a chair that wasn't there, neither one of them looks good, folks. Not for the leader of the free world. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. That's but the Democrats are still going to run with it, and they're still going to use it. Hunter Biden is on trial now for his gun thing with while smoking crack, and I mean, what the hell, man? He didn't. I guess the defense for Hunter Biden is going to be that he wasn't actually under the influence at the time he bought the gun, so therefore he shouldn't be subjected to this. Testimonies go that show that Hunter Biden was his ex-girlfriend said that he would smoke crack every 20 minutes. That's a lot of freaking crack. All this other information, phone records, everything, the laptop, the this, the that, the fact that he was porking his brother's widow and then got her addicted to crack. And then she threw the gun away because she was afraid. This guy is a sick son of a bitch, folks. Unfortunately, he grew up in a fairly decent generation where, I guess a lot of people turned out to be drug addicts, but if you look at the whole history of the Biden family, it ain't very good. It ain't very good at all. Not by a long shot. But anyhow, so Hunter Biden, he's there. He's, I don't know he's not really testified to anything. And I just don't get it. I mean, he's one whacked out son of a bitch. He really is. And it's not like he's smoking weed or any of that. I mean, Donald Trump Jr. admitted he smoked weed, he drank, and this, that, and the other thing, and the whole world collapses on him. Jeb Bush, I smoked weed a couple times. My dad would probably be pissed off. But he did this, and he's a Republican. It's pot. There's not a problem with it. It's legal in most states. And for people who think it shouldn't be, I don't know. I've always been a little bit more liberal on the pot thing. I don't think that heroin should be legal. I don't think that cocaine should be legal. I don't think any of that should be legal. But let's be real. If you're on the road at 2:00 in the morning, would you rather be driving around? If anybody else on the road happens to be under the influence of something, would you rather them be stoned or drunk? Because the truth of the matter is, if they're drunk, it's probably going to be a lot worse. And I do love my beer, but I have not drank and drove in many years. Because DUIs suck, and you can get a DUI for either of them. You're going to do anything, just sit at home. But anyhow, leads into another thing. Why today's generation is so woke compared to the previous ones. And when I say woke, I basically I use woke very often, most of my vocabulary. In fact, I probably use woke more than I use the F word or anything else. Because wokeism annoys me so much that I have gone to the point that anything that annoys me, I call woke. And for example, I was doing this thing the other I saw on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Now, if you could bring one of these back, what would it be? There was Blockbuster, there was Kmart. I forget what the other two were on there. I used to live most of my childhood. I lived either next to or across the street from a Blockbuster, and it was awesome. Especially when I was a high school stoner, it was like, okay, hop the wall to Blockbuster, get a couple movies, get a couple video games, bucket of popcorn, one stop fucking shop. Okay, it was great. Kmart, on the other hand, I like Kmart more than Walmart because, it was never as crowded. They didn't have as much cool stuff, but I missed them both. And then, again, growing up as a kid in the 90s, sure, well, I was different. My parents did not. My parents grew up in the 60s and 70s. So, for them, I went by the same, they brought me up by the same rules they went by, which is, okay, the second you see the street lights turn on, it's time to come home. You had no cell phones. You had no social media. And if you wanted to talk to a potential boyfriend or girlfriend, you had to balls up, pick up the landline and call when, maybe their dad would answer. Maybe their mom would answer. You never knew. You'd be waiting by the phone expecting that call, or they'd be waiting by the phone expecting that call. Hopefully they'd answer before the parents did. But you always knew there was a possibility that the parent could be listening in on the other phone. So you always had to be proper. You didn't have sexting or dirty talk back then because, well, try doing that when mama or daddy picks up the phone on the other line. It's different now. And even, again, as a child of the 90s, I was, 15, and I got my first cell phone when I was 15. That was 2006, I believe, 2005. And flip phone, had no internet on it. You could use AIM, AOL Instant Messenger. Many of you that watch this are probably familiar with such a thing, which is long since gone. But and text messages cost about 10 cents a piece, unless you had a fancy plan, which most of us did not. So, again, it was a luxury. And nowadays, parents are giving their kids iPhone when they're 7 years old. You think they may say they put parental controls on them. These kids get smarter and smarter by the generation. They figure out a way to get past them. They get on social media, everything else, and then they see the trans and the this and the that. And well, you may be a girl, but you may like to play in the mud and ride a bike as opposed to play with Barbies. Then maybe you might identify as a boy. That's what these kids get to see. And meanwhile, you may be a boy and you may like to hang out with grandma and knit or garden or something like that. Maybe your favorite color is pink. This was my case. I used to garden with my grandmother when I was a kid, and my favorite color was pink. Nowadays, they would say, well, maybe you're really a girl. Hell no. But what they're doing to kids now, they're trying to make them think that because they like this, and maybe they weren't born in the right body. Well, as I've said many times, folks, God never gets it wrong. Put everybody where he did because there's a reason. Nowadays we can't even say he, we can't say she. God is all everything. He probably has both parts. Who knows? Because if everything's made in God's image, then God is omniscient. Jesus obviously was a man. But that being said, that is the big difference between today's youth and that of yesteryear. And I think as a millennial, I think, a lot of us, I didn't get my first video game system until I was 11. I played outside. I fished. And again, the sun coming down meant you had to go in. That's why we loved the summer so much. Kids nowadays, it doesn't matter. They still have the same recreation. In the summertime, you played longer. It didn't, and you had physical activity. That's another thing. You played outside. You had physical activity. You played hide and go seek. You played, backyard, neighborhood baseball, neighborhood roller hockey, street hockey. You went fishing. You did whatever. But you didn't sit on your ass in front of a screen and play video games for 6 hours or however long you had after your homework was done. And half the time, parents don't even enforce on their kids to do homework. They just trust they did it. And who knows, nowadays, teachers may not give homework because teachers are lazier than ever before. The more homework they give, the more homework they have to grade. So you have to consider all this, and you look at it. You look at it and you wonder why our country is the way it is, why people can vote for a decrepit guy that shits himself on a regular basis, who can't even walk up the full stairs to Air Force One. He has to go on the lower deck. Granted, the 747, which is Air Force One, if it boards by stairs, which it never does, only Air Force One does that. Typically, the jetway does go to the lower deck, and then you have to walk upstairs to get to the upper deck. But he can't walk up those extra stairs to get to the upper deck because he might fall. So they have to put him on the lower deck. I know about airplanes. And then he gets off the out of the Secret Service vehicle in France, and he's looking around like he's completely lost. And it's very likely that this guy might be the next president, especially, and let me be the first one to say it, with this bird flu. One guy has got it and died from it. A couple guys have gotten it. The guy that got it and died from it's in Mexico. And ironically, Biden just closed the border? Yeah, not really. I wonder, will he institute a travel ban if this thing becomes I don't think he will, like Trump did. I don't think he will. I think he wants it because that's the only. I don't think he has anything to do with anything. I think the Democrats as a whole want it because that's their only way. They're hoping they have a way to lock people up again. They want this. They want to lock you up again. And if you're not registered to vote by mail, then you might not be able to vote. And most of us Republicans like to vote in person. Most Democrats don't, and they vote by mail. In fact, every Democrat I know votes by mail. Every single last one of them, from California to New York to Miami, Florida. Every last Democrat I know votes by mail. So you know what? If you're a Republican and we're actually worried about this bird flu crap, you might want to register for a mail-in ballot. Just saying. Now, again, I know we don't trust them for obvious reasons. But if this event does happen and they do what they did in 2020, which, we are 150 days out from Election Day. That's plenty of time for some fuckery to go on, and you guys know that as well as I do. We might just want to play their own game and hope to beat them at it. I don't think we will. If they play this game again, I don't think we will. I think it will be bad if they play this game again. I see this trending toward, as Rush Limbaugh says, I'm not saying I advocate for it, but as Rush Limbaugh said, if they do this, I could see this trending toward secession. Not advocating for it at all. We don't want that. We don't want our country to be at war amongst itself when we have everything overseas, everybody else attacking everybody. We need to be strong and we need to be together. However, if they do this and they do lock everything down again and Joe Biden wins again, there is going to be a good at least 30% of this country that is going to be fed up with the crap and we're just not going to take it anymore. And, so all I have to say is everything be fair and square. We know it wasn't last time. We know it wasn't. It was obviously not fair. If it was, you wouldn't have had you wouldn't have had poll watchers kicked out. You know what? If don't kick out poll watchers, let everybody, partisan poll watchers, let everybody watch the count. Don't kick anybody out. Don't make random pipes brace, and let everybody watch the count. Watch it and watch it honestly. And then if everybody gets to watch and Joe Biden somehow wins, it's fair and square. But in the last election in 2020, people weren't allowed to watch. Votes only for Biden at the top of the ticket came in like crazy. And then, of course, the Trump supporters were angry because we didn't know. The Democrats historically have been denying election results. 2000, when Bush beat Gore, they denied election results. The Democrats did. I'm not saying I did, but the Democrats did. They denied the results of the election. They said, count every vote. They were protesting outside the Florida Supreme Court. And there were partisan watchers watching them count all the ballots. And after about the 50th damn recount, Al Gore conceded that Bush had won the election fair and square by about 250 votes. But in 2020, you didn't have bipartisan watchers watching the vote count. They were kicked out. And COVID this, pipe break that. We can't have that again, folks. We need a fair and square election this time. And that's why I say we just have to play the same game that the Democrats do. Might be hard. It's going to be hard to convince me not to vote on election day. I probably will. However, I may decide to vote early. I don't know. I'm in Florida, so I'm not too terribly worried about anything. But I like the stigma of going in there on election day and voting. And a lot of people, especially the older generations, do. Like the people that used to come home when the lights came on. Nowadays, the kids are like, okay, all next thing they want is to vote online. And that would never happen. At least I hope not. Not in my lifetime. Because then Russia could really interfere in elections. A lot of states use voting. Electronic voting systems that could easily be hacked by other countries. The irony is, Joe Biden won most of those states. So considering, of course, Donald Trump may have won them in 2016. But that means, well, maybe there was Russia collusion on both ends. Maybe Russia hacked our machines to get Trump in because they thought that might benefit him. Then they realized Trump was a hard ass. So then maybe, I said maybe, I'm not spreading misinformation. So then maybe they figured, oh, Trump's going to kick our ass. So we're just going to hack these machines and make sure Joe Biden wins. That's possible. Because I honestly don't see any way how Joe Biden won fair and square in 2020. So, it all comes down to everything and all whatever. But, the generations we have, Gen X, a lot of them just tend to be liberal for whatever reason. The millennials and Gen Z, some of Gen Z, they're turning around on the conservative side. But we really need to enforce, especially people of childbearing age that are having kids in my generation and possibly older and younger ones. Don't get them phones when they're 8 years old. Wait till they're 14, 15. And if you do get them a phone, get them a flip phone that only is able to call 2 or 3 numbers, which are emergency contacts. That's step one. Step two, make them play outside if you're in a safe neighborhood, obviously. um, and just try and dial things back. We can't do it immediately, but at a slow pace, as opposed to it's like, okay, for example, if your kid wants to play Madden or I don't even know, I'm not up on the video games, Madden sports or the football thing or let's see, baseball. I played baseball games. That was All Star Baseball, MLB, the show, whatever. Sure, give them an hour a day to do that, but make them play the sport outside first, and then let them play a game. So they have the physical activity. And then after they, and believe me, I know this, I would play actual physical baseball and then come in and play, the game on the PS2. PS2 is the only game system I've ever owned, and I still own it to this day. And you appreciate it more on time. And you play the game differently as opposed to if you just sit there and play 5, 6 games in a row. It's not the same thing. If they're into NASCAR or racing, get them into a go-kart racing league. These things may cost money. Make them play team sports. There needs to be physical outdoor activity for kids. Otherwise, that's how America has this obesity problem. And the obesity problem is mainly because lazy parents that just want to say, okay, the video game system will be the parenting tool. I don't have to worry. He's not going to leave the video game. And a lot of times, unfortunately, that's true. And that is why we are in a situation that we are. Kids, when they're addicted to playing a video game, and I know because I've been there. You go to school, you're not processing anything. You want to go home and play that game. If you're forced to do outdoor activities that you don't necessarily want to, once you get out of school, you might pay a little more attention in school. Enjoy being in the cool air, for example, and learning things. But just these kids getting able to do whatever they want all the time. I mean, hell, I wasn't even allowed to drink soda during the week when I was a kid. I couldn't have a Coca-Cola unless it was a weekend. I drink beer every day, but there's a difference. But again, parenting has gone down the tubes. And that's why you've had people like Barack Obama and Joe Biden, everybody get elected, because also the fact that schools don't teach history. But it takes responsibility on every end. So if we go back to the older days of things, not giving the kids phones, not giving the kids game systems. I mean, sure, they can have their game system, whatever. Allotted time. The ideal thing is to convince them. Now, of course, if you live in Chicago or New York City, sorry, you're screwed. But if you live in a normal place, encourage kids to have outside time and make their way, sun starts to go down, it's time to come in, the creepy people are going to come out, this, that, and the other. It's how it's been for many years through many of our upbringings, and we all turned out just fine. So that's the main thing I want to say. And if you think you're going to shit your pants, find a toilet. Don't be like Joe Biden. Get out and vote November 5th. We're 150 days out, folks. It's very important. We have to. This is a do or die election, folks. If the Democrats win, this country is over. And I very, very strongly believe that. As Rush Limbaugh would say, I'll tell you when it's time to panic. Rush Limbaugh right now would say, hey, yeah, folks, it's time to panic. Bottoms up.